Hi.
Hello, can you hear us?
I can hear you just fine.
Hooray!
Sorry,
Yeah,
the split screen situation.
that's okay. Thank you so much for virtually joining us.
Absolutely. I'm so pleased to talk to you guys.
Yeah, we have a little bit of a more intimate group on this holiday Monday that we forgot was a holiday because
Right.
we aren't off. But yes, we
I
are.
know, I know. I was doing that in my head too. I'm like, oh no.
But we are super excited to talk to you about meat eaters.
Yes.
Yeah. Would you mind starting by just telling us a little bit more about yourself and your journey into comics?
Yeah. So I was a can you still hear me? I'm just making sure. Okay. All right. I lost the echo, and so I was like, "Oh no, I've been muted." So I was a kid from an artsy family. Both my parents were architects. My dad's still practicing, um, and so it was more than likely that I was going to go into some kind of arts adjacent field. I always thought I was going to be an animator, honestly, but I got into comics in middle school with Sailor Moon, and I thought, okay, well, I can do animation and comics. Let's just reach for everything. And then I went to college, and I went to Savannah College of Art and Design, which is very lovely. But at the time that I was attending, I'm not sure what the situation is now. Uh, the it's a spread out campus, so each subject that is taught is in a different building all over the city instead of being localized. um, it does sort of build up the different vocational rivalries. But uh, the animation department was literally on the wrong side of the railroad tracks in a former coffin factory, if I believe correctly. And it was very cold. It was too far away from everything. And I realized very quickly that I only had the patience to draw a very nice thing once. um, and so I went completely into comics after that.
Nice. Well, we certainly are all the luckier for it. But can you speak a little bit to the evolution of meat eaters, about sort of how this book came to be?
Yeah, so I'm very fascinated in zombies and the undead and horror. I consumed far too much horror as a child, and it was kind of paradoxical because I was really fearful as a child. I was scared of everything. Um, but I've always been drawn to zombies, particularly because I think there's a vulnerability in zombies that you don't get with a lot of other monsters. Like, they're very easy to destroy. Like, it's just that they're kind of relentless. That's the thing about them. There's enough of them, and um, you know, even without their legs, they're gonna keep going. Or they you can do a lot to them, and they'll keep going. And I think that's, I don't know. There's something that I really am drawn to. Um, Ashley in this book, Meat Eaters, she's not a zombie, although it does come up a lot. She's a ghoul. I needed a monster that had a little more agency than a zombie traditionally. Um, but yeah, the thing about zombies is it's a really great jumping off point if you want to talk about any kind of insecurities you have about a change within yourself that you can't stop. And that's something I really wanted to discuss. I was and is am going through some stuff on my own health journey where it's like, I would really appreciate it if my body would just cut it out for a little bit. And I sort of resent the changes that are happening, and I really wanted to explore that, and Meat Eaters gave me a wonderful opportunity.
you have a favorite like zombie story? Before we hopped on with you, we went around and was like, what is everyone's like? If you had to become a creature of the night, what is your preferred? I don't know if it was ghoul or zombie or something else for you, but since you mentioned your affinity for zombies, I was wondering if you had like a favorite zombie story.
Um, there is a movie, and I'm blanking on the name right now. It was kind of it didn't go to theaters, I don't think. And I'm trying to remember. It might have been one of Brandon Ruth's early stuff, but I might be misremembering. Um, but it's this movie where it's a guy and he's been bitten. He's going to become a zombie, but for some reason, by some quirk or anomaly, maintains his consciousness, and so he's just going through the whole process of deteriorating, like he's dead, um, and just sort of watching in horror as it's happening. And I thought, though, uh, I think that's really fertile ground that I think, as far as horror stories go, is definitely something that could be explored more. Um,
So would you have chosen zombie or ghoul as your creature of the night, or would you have chosen
no,
something different for you
no,
personally?
no.
Yeah.
I think probably, um, gosh, there's so many good monsters, but they always, when you're put under the gun, it sort of just always goes back to like vampire, werewolf, witch sort of situation. Um, Probably werewolf. We all have the power fantasy. You know, I think I would enjoy being able to like tear a few choice individuals apart.
Yeah, that sounds great. Or in this case, like ghoul with melee mode, which was also good.
Yes.
Um, a lot of us really enjoyed the werewolf depiction in here, werewolves, and that they didn't have to necessarily follow like the traditional only a wolf on the full moon kind of thing. There's like a whole world of lore around some of these creatures of the night. How did you sort of decide what rules to follow or not follow or make up?
I think I sort of cheated it by keeping it as ambiguous as possible. Um, and I think I made that choice because I don't know, just so often in the real world, it's very difficult to find hard, fast rules about anything. And so I felt like nailing them down in this world would also be to its detriment, because so much about this world that's going on as well is, that you just sometimes you might not get answers to why things happened or how things played out, or what the next right step is. And so as far as the monsters go, I might, you know I just, it didn't feel right to go, silver's always going to work against werewolves, or vampires have to sleep in coffins. If there are any kind of hard fast rules, they're not directly addressed, like in regards to vampires. Like, you won't see them in direct sunlight, but nobody's actually said whether or not they can go and be out in the sunlight. So yeah, I ambiguity was the choice.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and then it gives you certainly more room to play, and us as the readers more room to imagine. And ambiguity is such an important. It's almost like its own character in this book, as we follow Ashley, and we only know what she knows up until the end. That's good.
But building off of that, we were wondering what the, I don't know if there's more lore that isn't included about the horse spider, like what the
It's a real cryptid.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know that. So what can you
Yeah,
tell us about it?
it's a little known cryptid from the Appalachia, and as soon as I did a big thing a couple years back where it's like I tracked down as many cryptids as I could for U.S. North America, and that one came up. It's called an old spider legs, and yeah, it's half horse, half spider. The running theory, because this was ages and ages ago, was that it was probably a real horse that had just been born with a genetic anomaly that it had too many legs, and so they went spider. Um, but it's there. It's officially in the annals of cryptids, and it seems like a shame that nobody's ever used it before. Um, I wish I could have delved into that a little bit more, but I didn't feel like I had the space for it with the book. So,
Kind of going off of like ambiguity or things that maybe didn't have a solid answer. We were talking about like who or what Bess is. Just because she's very knowledgeable. She implied that she's old. We're not really sure if she is a vampire or a werewolf or whatever. I mean, all these different groups of people respect her. She's very knowledgeable about like all of these kinds of creatures of the night, these cryptids. So I wasn't sure if she was just a human who's knowledgeable, if she was something more.
she is the vampire. She is the leader of Gus and Dimitri's coven. So I can confirm that for you.
Nice.
Is there actually something to be said about the unicorns, or?
Oh yeah, you have the blacked out.
They're awful. They will kill you. Yeah, I wish the joke had landed before, what was it, the recent comedy horror movie Death of a Unicorn came out. But yes, I. It just seems so unlikely that anything that has any amount of horse in it is always going to be graceful and lovely if you've spent any amount of time with horses.
Nice. It sounds like we have a question from someone who joined us virtually.
Yes. Let's see. So.
With the amount of world building and lore that went into this story, would you ever want to return to this world in a future story, or is it more attached to Ashley's story in your eyes?
I definitely would like to return to the story. As I was going through this one towards the tail end, I was starting to have some ideas of kind of what Ashley's future would look like. So if I return, I would definitely like to extend Ashley's narrative a little bit farther, but I'm also a big proponent of making sandboxes that either I or somebody else can come back and play in at a later date. I think that when it comes to intellectual properties, the most enduring ones are the ones where anyone feels like they could come and just like build their own castle.
Yeah, I would love to read more from this world. Ashley had an amazing sort of like growth arc, but I think there's, like you said, there's a lot more that you can play with for sure.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of depictions of the other sort of creatures in this story, like say the two vampires being sort of truckers,
Yeah.
almost, or trucker bros, kind of,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
the werewolves. Were these conscious decisions, or do they just sort of, as you're working along, it's like it just makes sense they got to be these?
So I think as far as Gus and Dimitri go, that was something I had sort of designed years earlier, where it was just like, vampires are always cool and suave and, sexy. And I just don't see that being true to life, for everyone. Like, there has to be both normal and kind of awkward and weird vampires out there. And then also, I like the idea that wherever you are in history when you're turned, you sort of cling to uh, at least fashion choices of that era. So I feel like with Gus and Dimitri, they kind of came from somewhere closer to 70s, 80s. I know in unspoken backstory, I know that Dimitri is older than that, but yes, they were kind of set before the book was out. And then with the werewolves, I was just throwing anything at the wall with the werewolves. I'm like, again, it was sort of that thing where it's like, there's too many, I think there's too many sexy versions of these animals or these creatures. There needs to be something where it's like, they fuck up, or they might be bad at social settings, or they're just more normal teens, kind of gangly, kind of figuring themselves out. So that's kind of where I thought they should land design wise.
Did you always know you wanted to add elements of humor to what could otherwise be like a pretty traditional horror story, or even like an intense sort of trauma?
I kind of feel like I do feel like horror stories usually benefit from some kind of humor somewhere. Maybe if you're doing a really short, tight story, you can go without it. But the longer it goes, there has to be, a moment where the tension breaks. Because otherwise, you're just building, and that gets exhausting, both from the creator's standpoint and from the audience's standpoint, and also just from a very human element. Like, even under worst circumstances, we do tend to crack jokes. So yes, and there's so much in Meat Eaters that I think you can't not poke a little fun at. So I always knew I was going to bring some degree of humor to it. And then I think generally, with most of my horror stories, I try to bring at least a couple of reprieves into the narrative. I can think of there was one short I did a couple years ago called Hell Hath No Fury. And I think that was the only one where I'm like, it was like 15 pages. Like, it doesn't need a joke. It's going to be just a relentless, torture fest.
Are there favorite sort of jokes of yours in Meat Eaters? Like any moments where you particularly loved? Yeah.
Yeah. No, when Ashley and Motley are yelling in the big climax and Motley's like, you're trying to clearly reason with an animal, and she's like, you are also an animal, and then Motley flips her off very vindictively. That joke was there before I had even finished the script. So
yeah, that was definitely a favorite of ours in the group too. I think, let's see, some of the other ones we talked about were the vampires giving her the little heartbeat from basically Build-A-Bear workshop,
yes,
which we truly loved. And then Ashley hitting Glenn with the gender reveal powder cannon.
Yes,
also great.
I think there's so many little trinkets and stuff available online as far as the portable heartbeat. I'm surprised that's not come up in other horror narratives sooner, because it seems like such an obvious little toy for non-heartbeat havers to have. And then as far as gender reveal stuff goes, it's like, listen, what other readily available item on Amazon has has wrought so much destruction. Um, like it should be classified as a weapon at this point.
That is definitely the best use of it I've ever seen. So I
Yeah.
agree.
It's like I liked how at one point when they're in the bathroom, he's like, so this is what the girls' bathroom is like.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
A little bit later on, they're like, sir, this is the girls' fitting room kind of
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah, he sort of has loose understanding of what boundaries are. Like, even
I
I'm
don't
sort
think
of
it's his
like,
fault.
yeah, no, it is not his fault. He's only had Motley as like a companion all this time. I'm sure she's not a demure little flower.
It doesn't sound like Glenn was doing anything to support their emotional growth. So
Yeah,
perfect. It sounds like we have another question.
Yes.
Okay. Well, we will. Okay. Were there any cryptids, not cupids? Were there any cryptids or creatures that you wanted to include in the book that ended up getting cut?
And was Cupid one of them?
Twist.
I know. As soon as I saw Cupid, I'm like, oh, I should do something with that. Can you imagine a horror book with Cupid in it?
I mean, all of those stories really have horror elements that have been then adapted to be cute. So
Yeah. Let's see. No. If I could add a cryptid to the story or to an upcoming story, I think I'd like to do what is it? The Bolt Ridge, what is it? The Bolt Ridge Slider? Let me see what that guy looks like again. What is it? Slide Rock Bolter. Yeah, it's this big flat catfish looking thing that hangs off of the side of mountains. Its tail hooks along the top, and then it lets go. When it's got people below it, it lets go, and then it just slides down and eats everything in its way.
Bolter. Yeah.
Yes.
It's truly terrifying.
There's so many good cryptids in the North America arena that just never get talked about. It's always Bigfoot and Swamp Ape and Chupacabra, but there's a lot, especially that come from that Appalachia region and the logging community specifically that just never come up anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense.
outshone them all.
Yeah, Mothman outshone them all.
Mothman really outshone them all.
Pun intended, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, it's hard when you have that ass. It's hard to
Okay,
be.
look, as a Jersey Devil person, there's never enough of that because obviously trying to work that in ends up being straight up saying the devil. So you can navigate it interestingly.
He has his the Jersey Devil's got his little community. I think it's a little more of it's a more hardcore community than the Mothman community. Like Mothman's whole story is dire, but anyone who's attracted to the Jersey Devil tends to be a little more bloodthirsty, I find. Yes. But yeah, no, there's so many cryptids out there that is I love them all. I'm like, this is great. I'm really enjoying watching, what was it? I really enjoy as a side thing also watching new cryptids take hold in modern folklore, Siren Head, and most recently I realized that Dream Tiger had sort of reached those upper echelons of this is accepted by the community as a thing we will hold on to in consciousness for a while.
Clearly have to up my cryptid game. There's so many to learn about.
Yeah.
I'm excited. Well, speaking of mysterious creatures that are never seen, what's up with Ashley's mom?
So I am a kid that grew up with one parent traveling constantly for work, um, like to the extent that I only ever saw them maybe every other weekend. Um, on paper, they lived with us though. um, uh, so I kind of latched onto that. I may have gotten a little too far in that you just don't flat see her at all, but it was one of those things where it plays to Ashley's character. She's got this hyper independence thing going on, which is why she's constantly trying to solve not just her problems, but other people's problems, just because her understanding is if she doesn't fix it, nobody else is, she can't depend on anyone else to do it. So I may have pushed it too far in that you just don't see her, but I feel like it was the right choice narratively that she was not a big character or even a named character.
As Ashley mentions, she is a legal adult, so she doesn't necessarily need her mom around, but
Yeah.
she's funny.
If I go into Ashley's story more, I will have to rectify that. We will have to come to terms with the mother.
You, like, without the mom, you certainly had an amazing cast of characters. Were there any that sort of maybe were a surprise, that were the most fun to write or draw? Any whose voices that you heard particularly clearly as you were scripting?
Um, I, I feel a degree of attachment to all of them for different ways. Ashley is the one I commiserate with the most, but Motley, lives out all my like trash goblin desires. And then Harrison's like a cinnamon roll. Uh, Glenn is fun to despise. And then, like I said, Gus and Dimitri are just fun because it's like they're just two dumb dudes. They've been around for far too long and they've learned nothing for it. Um, and then Bess, I really enjoy. I've always enjoyed those characters that exist in sort of the guide spaces. But gosh, as far as fun, yeah, I probably enjoy. Ashley's close to life, but Motley is aspirational. So probably Motley.
That's awesome. Is there any questions?
So, I guess this is a question if this story were to expand out. This is the setting happened to be a area with a high number of creatures of the night, or is this the idea that like every town has this little pocket of supernatural activity going on that is undistinguishable from everything else?
Yeah, she's not in a hot spot. I think it's just, yeah, anywhere you go, it's probably you've got a 50-50 chance of at least having one creepy in the area. Where the town that Ashley lives in, 12, she herself is there, and the werewolves were there for much longer. And then with the vampires, they sort of gravitate towards a more city center area that just happens to be nearby. But I feel like any area on the map, though, you stand a chance of at least one local creepy. There's so many of them, it seems unlikely that they wouldn't be there.
Does anybody else have a question? Meredith, can I ask what you're most proud of from this book?
Yeah, I feel first, I'm just from a technical standpoint, I'm really proud of how the book looks because, every time you complete a new book, you kind of hope by the end that you can say that you've improved as an artist and a creator. And I feel like I've done that with this one. I feel like I've leveled up a bit. But also just hearing how many people really appreciate the book and what it's trying to say. This is probably one of the first books where that's been the feedback I've been getting, where it's people coming to me and saying, I really understand Ashley's story and it feels very applicable to what I've been through or what I'm going through. And that's always nice to say, is sort of offering people maybe not answers, but community, is the tangible proof that they are not the only ones going through moments in their lives that are presented with these hardships. And I'm really proud of that. It's a nice feeling. It's a nice, warm, fuzzy feeling. Not that people are going through all this, but that, they found a place with the book that speaks to them that way.
Yeah, thank you for that. I definitely agree, and I think folks don't always know to look for it in what would be marketed as like a horror graphic novel. So, yeah, as someone who has PTSD and had memory loss, and I often wish I had a melee mode that was truly fantastic. So,
Yeah.
Thank you for that. Are you able to share any information about any upcoming projects you might be working on?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just personally, I just finished up a travelogue, a journal travelogue from a trip to Vietnam about a year to, no, it was 2024, I think. And then I'll be moving on to another travelogue from a trip in January to South Africa. I am also working on a new middle grade book, but that's got a ways to go. That one's coming out in 2029. So we've got a bit of a wait. It's called The Rift, and it's about two siblings. One of them is human, one is only half human. And it's them coming to the realization that despite them in all meaningful ways being siblings, there is a degree of separation that occurs as you both individually grow up and into the adults that you will become. I'm really looking forward to people seeing that. It's a good story, and I'm really proud of where we're at so far. And then I've got Absolute Batman, the anthology. I've got a little 2-pager in that coming out at the end of the month. So
That's awesome. I'm so excited you're doing middle grade. You have such a distinctive art style that like anyone can see and know exactly that it's yours. And so I love getting to get more people of different ages hooked on it. So that's exciting. I'm excited you're doing middle grade.
Yeah, I hope to. It's still really in the early stages. We're just nailing down the last bits of the story now. So the end of this year, we'll have the story all set, and then I can hopefully start sharing some artwork. As far as other middle grade books that I've been on, I did a book earlier this year called Crumble. But that one, in that case, it was my first book where I wrote it and someone else drew it. It's drawn by Andrea Bell, who I believe she just had a new book come out, and I'm blanking on the name, but she's fantastic. You should check her out. But if you like middle grade books with some degree of fantasy realism, Crumble is a good one. It's taken off the premise, what if you really could eat your feelings? And we go from there.
That's awesome. Have you been reading any comics or graphic novels lately that you've been enjoying?
I haven't. It's the terrible curse of being in this industry is you never have enough time to read other people's comics. But I do have a list of titles that I would like to pick up. I think, the newest one that I'd like to pick up, because I know I saw that it's officially been printed. It's in stores now, I think. Hopefully you guys will know which one I'm talking about. It's like the two where it's the high school girlfriends. One of them made the mistake of thinking the other was a boy while they worked at a record shop.
Yeah,
The green
manga.
one.
Yeah, the green. Everyone calls it the green manga or the green Yuri manga.
Yes.
Yeah, the guy she's interested in isn't a guy at all.
Yes,
I think
that
is what
one.
it is. Yeah.
That's the one I'd like to pick up because I've seen a lot of the artwork that's been coming out, and it's just that, and it's so technically good, and that's always going to catch me. But then also just it's clear that they've taken what was just like a one-off premise and then grown something really interesting out of it.
Yeah, has been a fun one for us because no one just gets the first volume. Like sometimes manga is such a nice little taste, and then people are like, "Oh, that was nice," but this one, like every single person who got the first volume has come back and been like, "And I need the next one, and then the next one." So
How many are out so far? I thought only the first one was out. 3?
2 or 3? Yeah, I think 3 are out so far. Certainly
Okay.
2 are.
See, I'm so out of the loop. I need to get back on it.
Yeah, there's a lot to keep track of, so I can see how. Yeah.
Yes.
Are you reading Absolute Batman since you're writing a story for it?
They let me go through a couple issues. It's good so far, what I've read. Definitely. I like the I like that they're addressing the question of, would Bruce still be all the things that Batman is if his circumstances had been different?
Yeah, if his superpower wasn't being a billionaire.
Yes.
Yeah. Very fair. You certainly don't have to, but do you have any questions for us?
I don't know. Tell me if you could tell me if there was any scenes or characters that you like the most, if I do go into expanding the story, I'd like to know what people are interested in seeing more of.
I like Motley and Ashley in general and their relationship, but I like when they fought and then Motley bought Ashley a cookie, and she's like, "I can't eat this," and then she ate it. I don't know, all of their expressions were very emotional and it was very nice.
Yes, I do like that scene a lot too. That was, whenever you're scripting a story, there's a couple of scenes that, screw the rest of the story. You're working to make just these scenes happen, like these 3 or 5 scenes. And then, and that was definitely one of them.
I would be interested to see more encounters with different cryptids to see how they work together to defeat or not defeat the cryptid in question.
Okay. It's definitely a fun opportunity. There's lots. Like I said, there's so many out there. I will have to bring Cupid into the next one, I guess.
The Tooth Fairies, has a really good thing that you can
God.
go on. He collects freaking teeth. So.
I know. They've done the horror movies with what was it? They did it for Hellboy: The Golden Army, and then there was that Katie Holmes horror movie with the Tooth Fairy. People are definitely aware that there's a horror element there.
I did want to say, more of an overall, I really liked the colors that were used and to kind of like show, like I pointed out this spread on 160 and 161, where it's like the same illustration but the two different color palettes basically, because it's her kind of ghoul mode and then her more human mode, and then just how like the colors were really like vibrant and showed differences, but then throughout there was also really subtle, like her eyes and even Motley and Harrison's eyes too at certain moments. So
Yeah.
the kind of color shifting and then shifting back, and for being a horror thing that takes place at night, it was also like super visually appealing.
Yeah.
Super dark.
learning how to color appropriately for nighttime environments was, there's always something in a book that you're working on that you should be challenging yourself with, and that was one of the hurdles.
I would love to know more about Bess. I think she's super interesting. Someone mentioned that they reminded them a bit of like a Giles style character. And then I would follow Harrison anywhere. So yeah.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
He's a good boy.
I was just remembering in the cookie scene where he like pops up at the end to take their photo because he's so proud of them.
Yes.
I love it. Amazing. Yeah. Well, I just thank you so much for spending time and for joining us. No matter how much we love a book, when we all come to the table, we get to appreciate it that much more when we get to hear all the parts of yourself and all the hard work that went into making it from your brain to our hands. So we're really grateful to you for sharing your time.
Yeah, this is really cool that you do it. I wish this was something that more shops did. It's really nice to get the opportunity to engage, directly about the book that I spent 2 years doing. You spend so long working on a vacuum on a book that by the time it comes out, you're like, I don't know if it's any good. No one else has looked at it except me. So getting to actually like discuss about it is nice after the fact. So I really appreciate it. Thank you. I think this is a really cool thing that you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And if you're ever out towards Baltimore, we'd love to have you in person.
I would like to go that way. I don't know when that would happen, but I would definitely like to be out that way.
Fair, yeah. Thank you so much, Meredith.
Thank you.
Thank you.